The other side of this coin now is privacy for the users, for the internet users. And Christine Jones is a former executive vice president, general counsel, and corporate secretary for GoDaddy when that company was growing. Christine has been a leader in the fight to make the internet better and safer for users, particularly children. She has testified numerous times before Congress, helped push through numerous bills such as the Ryan Hate Online Pharmacy Consumer Protection Act, the Protect Our Children's Act, and Keeping the Internet Devoid of Sexual Predators Act. As an early leader in technology law, she has a unique understanding of the context of history and where we started and where we need to go on privacy, cybersecurity, network security and stability, and other critical infrastructure issues. Currently, she's semi-retired. She spends her time as a policy enthusiast, philanthropist, occasional Republican political candidate, which I got to ask her when we get time why she would ever do that, an entrepreneur. She's always looking for ways to serve. So I please give her a warm welcome, Christine Jones.
When Arizona was seeking status as a state.
Uh-oh, mic's not working. I'll give her mine. I'll trade you.
Yours didn't work either.
All right, Becker wants you to take this one.
When Arizona was seeking status as a state, the Constitutional Convention was started each day with a prayer. My favorite prayer came on day 2 when the chaplain prayed, among other things, the following. He said, "We pray thee, O Lord, that this body of men, the people of the state of Arizona, would adopt such a constitution as would be acceptable to every citizen, and that it would grant unto Arizona statehood and place her among the grand galaxy of states in these United States, and that Arizona would be the brightest star in the Union." Isn't that good? I read that and I thought, is it possible that this prayer from 1912 would sum up why we do what we do every single day? Because you see, I believe that we can be the brightest star, not just as the state of Arizona, but each of us where we exist. You can shine light, and it only takes a little bit of light to light up a lot of darkness. And I've tried to do that. Now, a lot has been said about me in the past few years. Some of it starts with Republican candidate for governor. Some of it starts with GoDaddy executive. Some of it starts with Republican candidate for Congress. And all of those things are true. I did run for governor, and I went from 0 to leading in the polls in about 7 months. People started talking about me as if I were going to be the next governor. The Arizona Republic was publishing my picture on the front page of the paper, and then the ugliness of politics intervened. And about $3 million was spent beating me up mercilessly on television. And the guy who beat me is now the governor. I also did run for Congress. I went from 0 to leading in the polls in about 2 months that time. We got much better the second time round. And we were up by about 1,000 votes on election night, and then there was the recount, and we lost by 27 in the closest congressional race in history. But long before any of that, I was just a scrappy little freckle-faced redheaded kid from southeast Denver, growing up with a family who didn't have much. I did have a really smart aunt, my mom's sister. Her name is Ann. And she said, "You know, Christine, if you ever want to get out of southeast Denver, if you want to make something of yourself, you must become educated." And I really admired her, and so I took that seriously, and I did get an education. I became a CPA, I became a lawyer, I did all of the things that I was supposed to do, and like most of you here, I worked really hard, and learned a lot of lessons along the way. 3 of them I'd like to talk to you about tonight. The first one is, people treat you the way you let them treat you. The second one is, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And finally, stop talking about it and just do it. Now, you might be asking, what does all that have to do with privacy versus national security? I'm glad you asked. Because in about 2007, after we had established an office in Washington, and after we had grown GoDaddy from just a few dozen people to several hundred, the NSA came to talk to us and said, hey, Christine, wouldn't it be great if we had access to all of the data in your system? Because by then, GoDaddy had grown to such a point that about 1/3 of all the traffic on the internet was flowing through our servers every day. If you're the NSA, 1/3 of all internet traffic in the whole world sounds pretty tempting. They said, well, wouldn't it be great if we could have a back door? And I said, no, not on my watch, because I've read the Constitution and I know what it says. And then in 2008, and in 2009, and 2010, and 11, and 12, they asked again, and again, and again. And guess what I said? No, not on my watch, because I've read the Constitution and I know what it says. It says no citizen should be subjected to an unreasonable search or seizure without a subpoena. Now, NSA, FBI, CIA, no offense, Steve, you come to me with a properly issued document from a court of competent jurisdiction, I'm your guy. I will help you catch bad guys, and we help them catch lots of bad guys. I didn't find out until much later, thanks to Edward Snowden, that all of my internet colleagues thought differently about this than I did. Microsoft, Yahoo, Facebook, Google, Skype, that should terrify you, YouTube, and the granddaddy of them all, Apple, all said yes when the NSA knocked on their door. And I want to emphasize something about this decision, which I made repeatedly over a period of about 6 or 7 years. This is a balance, because on the one hand, we're talking about your privacy, your constitutional right, protecting the things that you hold dear, and on the other hand, we're talking about preventing terrorism. Nobody wants another 9/11. And I have to emphasize, never once did I ever get an order from one of these agencies where it was some sweaty guy in a wife-beater t-shirt watching people in their living rooms. That's not what this was. These were legitimate requests from law enforcement agencies. Nevertheless, my position was then and is now, you must do it constitutionally. And guess what? Guess what happened? They did every single time. They figured out a way to get the document and deliver it. And we caught a lot of bad guys. And we prevented some terrorist attacks. And we helped them find some terrorists who don't exist anymore. Because people treat you the way you let them treat you. Earn their respect. Know your rules. Know the Constitution. Know what you're supposed to do. But in the end, people treat you the way you let them treat you. Now, when I first went to GoDaddy, there weren't many rules around the internet. That's why I set up a shop in Washington to begin with. And basically started thinking, what's the most egregious thing that could happen on the internet? And how would we address it? And we started kind of ticking down the list, building out a framework of policy that now governs the internet. And every time I was in DC, somebody would ask me, Christine, why are you doing this? What does your company get out of this? And I would say, nothing. But in your life, you should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And for me, in that moment, it was. Now, when I left GoDaddy, there were over 1,000 companies doing what we did. Over 1,000 just domain name registrars, plus all of the thousands of hosting providers and email providers and all of the various products and services that we did. How many of them do you think had an active policy development shop in Washington, D.C.? Well, you know I had one, so it couldn't be zero. One. Exactly one. That was it. Nobody else was devoting the resources to it. You know why? Because sometimes you have to stop talking about it and just do it. Stop talking about it and just do it. If you don't, who is? Who's going to pass the Ryan Hate bill? Who's going to pass the Protect Our Children bill? Who is going to do those things if it's not you? Stop talking about it and just do it. It might be scary. They might say no the first time. It might make you fail. You might feel stupid. Okay, stop talking about it and just do it. Now, I want to leave you with a thought about what all of this has to do with you. You may never have to get beat up by the NSA. I hope you don't. You may never get hauled into the scary soundproof rooms in Washington where they close the door and you think you're never getting out. And I hope you don't. But you're going to face something. You're going to face something. For me, the 50,000 negative tweets in one weekend, the $3 million of negative advertising, the abject falsehoods that people make up about you when you run for office, the 400 signs that say, oh, hey, by the way, she doesn't live in the district. And maybe even having to say no to the National Security Agency. No matter your context, no matter the answer to the question that you have to give, I will tell you, if you finish well, you will live to fight another day. I did, and so I will, and so will you. Now, one last thing before I invite the gentleman back, and this I have to cheat. So I was looking through Facebook, and this crowd, thankfully, is age-appropriate like me, that you like Facebook still. And you scroll through and people post memes or they post links to articles and things like that. And a lot of the times you think, okay, that's nice, but I wish you would just not clutter my timeline with that. Well, I saw one on St. Patrick's Day that I thought, wow, that is actually a really nice quote. And I stopped to slow down to read it, and it said the following. I'm going to read it verbatim. No matter how hard I work or how well I've had it planned, no matter how good a vision I had of where I was going, no matter how I did visualizing exercises and prayed and believed, there's definitely still some amount of measured luck in the process. So, while you're being the hardest working person you know, try to create opportunities to get lucky. And I scrolled down, and it was attributed to Christine Jones from a book called Women Game Changers. And I said, well, there you have it. I'm a meme. Thank you, guys.